American author Naomi Wolf released a video recording of a phone call to Angus Taylor's office in which she disputes details from his maiden speech to Parliament that's been tweeted out and made public. Now, in his 2013 speech, Angus Taylor spoke of political correctness and a debate over a Christmas tree at Oxford in 1991, in which he mentioned Dr. Wolf lived down the corridor. But Dr. Wolf has disputed the claim, saying she loves Christmas and she wasn't involved in the issue and left Oxford in 1988. And that's, of course, before the minister's arrival. And she is seeking a correction, and she's seeking it big time. She's very angry about this. Now, in question time, the minister was asked about this, and he wants an apology from her now. He says he wants an apology from the US author because she accused the minister of anti-Semitic dog whistling.
Her accusation of anti-Semitism is wrong and deeply offensive to me and my family. Mr. Speaker, my grandmother was Jewish, and my belief in Judeo-Christian values is deeply held. I call on her to apologise for these unsubstantiated and outrageous accusations.
He has refuted that, what he did by raising these issues around her and Christmas was anti-Semitic. I spoke to Naomi Wolf a short time ago. Naomi Wolf, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You've published a recording of a heated phone call with Energy and Emissions Minister Angus Taylor's office. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, I don't know if I'd agree that it's heated. I think that I was firmly requesting a correction because Angus Taylor has made misstatements about me in very public forums, misstating that I was among graduate students at Oxford in 1991 who were campaigning against Christmas. He made this claim in his maiden speech to your Parliament, and that's a very public forum. It's an important forum. It's not true. And the Financial Review, another important news outlet, had a big feature about him in which a detailed and lengthy story, which is not accurate, was published, and to their credit, they're correcting it right now, which I appreciate. But the version that came out that has stood uncorrected and that would have been signed off on by this member of Parliament's communications office has even more misstatements that I personally was at Oxford with him in 1991, living down the hall, which is not true, and that I personally campaigned against Christmas trees and Christmas, which is not true, and that he, quote, a Christian, end quote, opposed this campaign and lobbied against it and triumphed over my alleged campaign against Christmas trees. And all of this is not true. I wasn't there in 1991. I was in New York. I'd written what many people think is an important feminist text, The Beauty Myth. I was touring all over the world with it. It's fully documented. I was in Australia. I was in North America on book tour. I was living on 72nd and Broadway. I wasn't living in Oxford. I wasn't a graduate student. And I've never campaigned against Christmas. And, it is important to correct the record. And I've been waiting for almost 4 days requesting publicly that this member of Parliament correct the record in as public a way as he misstated and delivered this fake news to the citizens of Australia and the world, because it's very religiously divisive and it's totally inaccurate. But I really object to my name and reputation being misused by an elected official to tell a false story, and it's the same story we've heard in the United States and United Kingdom. Conservatives are rolling this out in democracies around the world, the kind of war against Christmas.
Naomi Wolf,
the
minister has actually addressed this dispute in our Parliament during question time. He was asked a question from the other side of politics, and he says his speech did not say you're involved in the war on Christmas and that he is not anti-Semitic. And he's actually taken offence at your tweet calling him anti-Semitic, and he calls on you to apologise for saying he's anti-Semitic, saying he's offended. Will you apologise for describing him as anti-Semitic?
So again, I have to say I'm quite taken aback by what you're telling me. I think it's very inappropriate and very wrong. Anyone can look at the transcript of his maiden speech. He stated that I was living down the hall in 1991 in Oxford, and that's not true. It's an untruth. He needs to correct that. He then goes on to situate me among people that he specifically invokes who are campaigning against Christmas. He has no right to put my name in that context. It's not accurate. It's an untruth. And he also says, he characterized the people campaigning against Christmas as not having anything in common with the rest of us. I'm Jewish. I'm married to a Christian. My stepchildren are Christian. My children are Jewish. It's like many 21st century families, a multi-religious, multi-ethnic family, you know, we're all distressed. My mom is distressed that my name would be inappropriately and wrongly invoked for what is clearly religiously divisive fake narratives about a war on Christmas. And then the National Review, like I was a political consultant for President Clinton informally, Vice President Gore formally. I know how communications offices with an elected official work. No one would have told this detailed story about me allegedly warring against Christmas, personally warring against Christmas trees in 1991, allegedly down the hall from Angus Taylor. All of that being totally false if the communications department and the principal had not signed off on it. So I do think that's anti-Semitic. I stand by what I said. It's inappropriate to tell such a story. It's not true. No one, not me, not my family, has warred on Christmas or Christmas trees. And many centuries of anti-Semitic invocations of how, you know, Jewish people are threats to Christians makes a story like that quite divisive. And a phrase like, you know, nothing in common with the rest of us is quite divisive, or, you know, words to that effect. I don't have the text in front of me.
The minister says that because when you first tweeted and you've just stood by it, you accused him of anti-Semitic dog whistling, and he says he has a Jewish grandmother and that his family's been offended by this, that he's not anti-Semitic. You don't withdraw from that?
I mean, respectfully, you know, I'm glad that he comes from such a diverse family. As I said earlier, I have no argument with his family. I do think that it's inappropriate to say that I was somewhere that I wasn't, doing something that I wasn't doing. I think elected officials owe it to the people of Australia, the citizens of Australia, as in my country, the United States, to be truthful. The Financial Review said Taylor was awarded a Rhodes Scholarship, I'm reading it, and went to Oxford University, where left-wing writer Naomi Wolf lived a few doors away. When she proposed banning the traditional Christmas tree, Taylor, a Christian, led a successful counter-rebellion. I mean, you guys can make your own decision about whether that's religiously divisive or not. My blended, multi-religious family is quite offended by it. It didn't happen. I was promoting a feminist text called The Beauty Myth all over the world that year. I wasn't in Oxford. I was no longer a graduate student. Okay. This is a matter of public record.
So let's go to that, because Mr. Taylor remembers meeting you at New College at Oxford, he says. Is that a recollection you also have? Because he says he attended New College, Oxford from 1991 to 1993, and that he remembers meeting you. Do you remember meeting him?
So my wonderful husband is holding up a screenshot of The Beauty Myth, August 25th, 1991. It's number 13 on the bestseller list of the New York Times. I was not in Oxford. I was touring the United States, Australia, and the Netherlands as the author of The Beauty Myth. I have no memory of meeting Mr. Taylor, but that isn't the point. He didn't say in the comments that I objected to, and my wonderful husband has also produced a screenshot of Joe Chichester, who tweeted, bless her, she's an Australian friend of mine who was couch surfing on my couch at 72nd and Broadway in 1991, where I lived, and she tweeted that she can vouch for me being an inhabitant of New York City. I was 29 years old because she stayed with me in my apartment, and she met me in the Netherlands later that year where I was touring for the Beauty Myth. None of what Mr. Taylor has said is accurate. So I shouldn't have to identify where I was. He has said things that are completely provably wrong. There are multiple eyewitnesses, most recently my mom, Deborah Wolf, Dr. Deborah Wolf, who just told an Australian journalist, and she'll tell you and your viewers, that she was in Greenwich Village visiting me all that year, attesting to the fact that I lived at 72nd and Broadway. I was 29 years old. I'd met my future husband. I wasn't a graduate student in Oxford.
As you
my
know,
wonderful husband is just showing you a picture of my mom and my dad. That's Deborah Wolf and Leonard Wolf. Sadly, he passed away this year. That's me in my apartment on 72nd and Broadway on May 16th, 1991. It's a Getty image by Michael A. Smith. It is not accurate what this member of parliament has said. And as a woman, I find it objectionable that I should be having to document my entire life, which is a matter of public record. He should do his own research. I wasn't a graduate student in Oxford in 1991. I never warred against issue. He should apologize. And more importantly, he should correct the record. This isn't about me. Elected officials in your country and in my country should not lie to people, and they should not take women's names and reputations as if these women don't exist in their own lives with their own achievements and drag them over to their agenda, which I personally think is a religiously divisive one.
Naomi Wolf, the office, as you know, because you recorded the phone call, says that this 2014 profile in the Australian Financial Review is what got it wrong, not the speech. What do you say to that, that the reporting was wrong rather than the claims in the speech?
I mean, I've just been in communication with the very lovely reporter who wrote that story. To their credit, the Financial Review is doing what journalists should do, which is what I was trained to do as a journalist, which is correct an error. God bless them. You know, there's not as much of that around these days as we should see. His name is Aaron Patrick. He's the senior correspondent, and he allowed me to present my correction, as he should. So I guess what I would say is, having been a consultant, a political consultant to Vice President Al Gore formally in 2000 and informally to the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, I know how communications shops for an elected official work. And there is no way, in my experience of political consulting at a very high level, that a detailed story full of falsehood about how I allegedly led a campaign against Christmas trees and Christmas in Oxford in 1991, thoroughly false from beginning to end, could have ended up in a glowing feature about Angus Taylor. If Angus Taylor, the principal, or his communications shop had not okayed that story.
So as you know, his office says Minister Taylor recalled seeing you at Oxford, and I know you've just told me you don't recall seeing him. Were you there that year?
I've never met this man. I didn't know who he was until 3 days ago when I was alerted that he'd been lying about me.
Were you there that year?
You know, I was traveling all over the world. I don't think so, because The Beauty Myth was published in Britain in 1990, and in 1991, again, I met my future husband. I lived in New York. I was traveling to Canberra, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. I was traveling all over North America. Respectfully to Mr. Taylor, I wasn't paying attention to him, whoever he is. I was involved in advocating for what has become a significantly important text about feminist issues.
Okay, I accept that.
And
so
women's self-esteem.
Right
so
now, the minister has called for you to apologise. So now, right now, you want the minister to clarify, but instead he's gone into question time and actually called for you to apologise about that tweet referring to anti-Semitism. So in some ways, there's a bit of a stalemate here. What do you want the minister to do?
I mean, respectfully, Patricia, let's not get distracted with non-issues. This person who, again, I'd never heard of before 4 days ago, is trying to draw us into a catfight. We should not lose track of what's really important. Civil society right now in the United States and in Australia and in Britain and in democracies around the world is being besieged by people who are trying to make us hate each other, mistrust each other, hate immigrants, hate trans people, hate LGBTQ people, distrust feminists, and tell fake news and fake stories and have people lose faith in truth itself. That's what's really important. This man I've never met, and I'm speaking as a woman, out of nowhere, I didn't pick this fight, decided to say things about me that are simply categorically not true. It's up to him as an elected official to correct the record and tell the truth. I didn't initiate this conflict. He did, and it's not, in my view, about me and Mr. Taylor. It's really about, will elected officials tell the truth to citizens that they represent? To me, it's not a matter of me and him. There is no me and him. And it's not a matter of Jewish or Christian or Muslim. What's really disturbing to me as the stepmother of Christian children, as the mother of Jewish children, as the wife of a Christian man, as the daughter of a Jewish woman, what's horrible to me is that as we go into the holiday season, someone I don't even know and can't remember ever meeting decided to use my name in a national legislative forum to say things about me that are not true, that are religiously divisive. The decent thing to do is for him to simply correct the record. I wasn't living down the hall from Angus Taylor in 1991. I don't recall ever meeting him. I've never campaigned against Christmas. And frankly, as a woman, I find it objectionable that I have to even have this conversation because it has nothing to do with me. He should simply tell the truth, correct the record. I wasn't there. I didn't do it.
Naomi Wolf, just a final question. There are some people that have been saying that it was unethical to record this conversation with his office as you did, and of course we've all watched it on YouTube. Well, I don't know if we all have, but I certainly have. I can assure you every moment of it, because it was quite a compelling thing to watch, the way that you talked to this person in the office and asked these questions. Did you think about that, or telling him that you were recording?
I did tell him I was recording. He kept talking.
Okay, so he didn't register it.
No, I don't know if he registered it or not. I told him clearly that I was recording.
Okay.
But honestly, I have to say, as a woman and as a feminist, I'm quite disappointed that anyone would challenge a woman's right to get accountability and set the record straight. I contacted that office after 4 days of requesting on Twitter and publicly that they correct the record with no response. And I was tweeting their own Twitter feed, which their communications director should be monitoring and be aware of. So I gave him 4 days to contact me, say, Naomi, I'm really sorry I got this totally wrong, and correct the record. I should have every right to defend my reputation, as should every woman in Australia or the United States or anywhere around the world. And I shouldn't have to be concerned about the feelings of people on the other side of a falsehood. I was acting in the capacity of a target of slander, and I have every right to defend my reputation, to tell the truth about where I was in 1991, and to resist anyone instrumentalizing my name, my family's reputation, or my religious faith as an instrument of hatred in the holiday season. I absolutely stand by what I did.
Naomi Wolf, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.